all pretty much familiar with the idea of living in a simulation. This has been going around for years and years now, and it's naturally um, something that takes our imagination. It gives a whole new perspective on things. Like 1 minute I'm plodding along in my day-to-day routine, and then I think, wow, this whole thing's a simulation, and it's like there's a moment of seeing everything anew, which is great. Don't really help very much in the long run, though, because after that momentary intellectual flirtation with the idea that we are living in a simulation, which is a great idea, nothing against it at all. We kind of find ourselves settling back into the same old groove because it don't really make any difference to the way we perceive the world. Even if we are completely sold on the idea, even if we can understand to whatever extent the physics of it, why we can say that we live in a simulation rather than what we naively consider to be a solid material universe. Even knowing that it's a simulation doesn't help, in other words. So the question is, what does help? So the first stage is we don't know it's a simulation and we think everything is solid and real and that there is this thing called stuff. Whatever it is, stuff. Stuff matters, stuff. So then it might be the case that we might, by looking into the subject and maybe learning a bit of physics, we learn that when two things touch, two supposed solid objects touch, like my fingertips, there's nothing touching. It's just the electrostatic repulsion between negative fields, the negative fields of the electrons on my fingertips. It's not that there's a material there hitting a material there, it's electrostatic repulsion. So in other words, we're talking about forces that attract and repel each other, rather than the substance, the material, which seems very self-evident to us that the world is material, but when we look into it, the idea stops being self-evident and becomes laughably ridiculous. What is substance supposed to be? What is solid continuous substance supposed to be? This is an absurd question because there never was such a thing, there never will be. It only exists in our naive assumptions. So, one stage of the evolution of our awareness can be to realize that everything is just forces, repelling and attracting forces. But even so, the intellectual understanding of this doesn't really change an awful lot. If I bang my toe, as has often been pointed out to refute philosophers who say nothing is real, if I bang my toe or drop a lump hammer on my toe, I shall shout out loud. And at that point in time, that is very, very real to me. And my philosophical fancies will evaporate in a millisecond. So, in order to understand on a deeper level what Buddhists call emptiness, we have to do a lot more. We have to get into it a lot more. We have to spend more time getting into it. In the psychological realm, the substance which we prize, the material object, so to speak, that we cherish, we hold on to, because we sure as hell do hold on to it, is the psychological ego, the sense of self, the sense of who I am. I'm me. Me sounds so definite. It's so obvious. How can you not understand what me means? It's me, for God's sake. It's me, or it's you. You is just the other me, seen from your point of view. But when we look into it, if we are somehow motivated to look into it, which happens under particular circumstances, usually circumstances of suffering where we need to kind of clean up our act a bit, then we find out that this taken for granted stuff, the me stuff, what me is made out of, what the hell is me made out of, is it's a virtual construct, it's an assumption. It's a convention, as Alan Watts says. We assume that there is such a thing in order to proceed with the game. At that stage, we're in what we could call purposeful mode. We're looking outwards at the world, at what our purposes are, and we're busy trying to get those purposes to be fulfilled. That keeps us busy an awful lot. And instead of being reflective and looking back and saying, who's busy? This is, this is what the mystics always say. Who is it that's so busy? Who is it that has the purposes? Who is it that the purposes are supposed to serve? And normally we don't do that. We don't reflect because it's awkward. It's an awkward moment. Because where there should be something, there isn't anything, and that feels. You don't want to go there. You don't want to go looking into that. It just there isn't an immediate feeling of um, security. In fact, there's the opposite. Our security evaporates. We're left we're left in a much less secure space because the self is our security. It's our anchor. It's a thing we never question that guides us. It's our agenda is to serve the ego. If the ego looks like it might be empty, like it might be a hologram or simulation, that throws a different light. It takes the steam out of us. It takes the wind out of our sails. We might even get depressed because there's no ego. Who's it all for? What am I doing it all for? So a nice extrovert, externally directed, goal orientated modality falls into ruin if we do this reflecting. We really can't. It's not like I can stop every now and again and reflect. I can't. What if I am playing this game, the self game, the ego game? In order to play the ego game, I have to stay stupid. I have to stay dumb. But this isn't dumbness, like Chogyam Trungpa says. It's intelligent dumbness. It's smart dumbness because it's for a reason. It's to allow me to continue playing the game that there really is this thing called an ego, that it's a real thing and it's made out of real stuff, and that it's not just some kind of transient hallucination that is dependent upon how I look at it, dependent upon the conditions at that particular moment. So that's a door we have to go through. As long as we are reluctant to go through that door, i.e. the door of discovering ontological insecurity, losing all our routines, which give us a kick, which give us a high, which give us a euphoric booster every so often in the day, because it's those euphoric boosts that make up our nutrition. They make up the nutrition of the psychological ego. It eats those to grow and be strong. It eats those little situations where it triumphs over situations where it is gets one over on the world or another person. It triumphs on it gets nutrition out of those situations where it perceives itself to be ahead of the game, one one step ahead, right when everyone else is wrong, etc., etc. All those kind of things. We all know those kind of things because that is the 100% pure motivational um, drive behind the psychological ego. It can't be equal. It has to be better. It tries very hard to be better. And if it perceives it to be better, we get one particular manifestation of the ego, which is that the positive, extrovert, enthusiastic, optimistic ego. it is perfectly possible, and it happens all the time, that that optimistic Teflon ego, the ego to which nothing sticks. Teflon ego is a great phrase. I like that. No matter what shit I get involved in and I'm causing, I've got a Teflon ego. And we all can think of examples of that, maybe. But what can happen is when this hallucinatory ego takes too much crap and it doesn't get enough confirmation or validation, it flips and it becomes the lesser ego. It's worse than everything else. It's one down instead of being one up. It's one down. The ego functions just as well like this. It's just as happy, really. Happy maybe is not quite the right word, but it functions just as well. Only now it sees everything in terms of disaster and how bad things are and how it, it flips everything over. So what was positive now becomes negative. Same thing, same old thing. It's still the ego game. So this idea of going through a door means paying no heed to gains and losses, ups and downs, instead of focusing all our attention on the external arena, being aware of the one who feels good when there is winning and who feels terrible when there's losing. And the thing about this is we lose both. We lose the good feeling as we discover the emptiness of the self, and we also lose the bad feeling. And instead, we have something very different. We have something which isn't a game.